All right, good evening, everybody. It's 5:30. We'll go ahead and get started with the pre-commission agenda. I don't have a president's report today. Are there any general housekeeping or agenda item discussions? Commissioner Nielsen?
Yes, thank you. I just want to take a minute on behalf of the commission to thank Stacy for all of the support that she's given us. We have a little card and Justin has a very small token of our appreciation. Yeah. Thank you, Madam President. That's all.
For Administrative Professionals Day.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Madam President?
Thank you, Stacy.
Yes, let
Commissioner
me
McKinney.
echo thanks to Stacy and for all the great work she does for the commission. As far as the agenda is concerned, I am going to request that item 2 on the consent agenda be moved to the regular agenda this evening. That's the license agreement for installation of cameras. So if we can put that as perhaps item 3 on the regular agenda, I would appreciate that.
All right, we'll go ahead and do that. Is there anything else? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry for the director's report today.
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Sherry Knaus. I'm the chief of staff. I am subbing in for Director Head. So thank you for giving us an opportunity to provide you with our director's report this evening. Go ahead and move to the next slide. So again, we always like the opportunity to be able to come before you and talk about the various projects and share some of the great news that's going on at the district, really focusing on building together, building safe, and building more. First off, as you've already recognized, today is Administrative Professionals Day. So next slide, please. We are so happy and so excited to say thank you to all of our administrative staff. They do so much work behind the scenes that make everything happen here at the district. We simply could not do what we do without them. So you have a picture up there of our entire admin team, and we just can't say thank you enough for all that they do to support this team. So. And then moving on, building safe, we are right in the middle of the National Work Zone Safety or Work Zone Awareness Week. And you may have noticed the social media campaign that's out there, really just hoping to bring awareness to drivers to be cautious when coming through our work zones and to bring awareness to our field teams that are out and about. The picture you have is actually a father-son duo that are both employed here at the district, Kevin and Colton Eldridge. So we're really excited to be able to showcase many of our team members as a part of the social media effort. Today is also Go Orange Day. And many of our team members are wearing orange to help recognize that the safety of our team is a top priority. Moving on on the project front, our crews have begun reshaping the 8th Street extension in preparation for the upcoming AutoSeal improvements. And this is going to be the first phase of this project. It's really going to help with dust mitigation and also cut down on some of the regular maintenance efforts that are needed to maintain that area. Also have some great news to share as it relates to the Fairview Avenue Bridge that's over the Boise River. We have secured full federal funding for this project. Yay! And that will cover the design of this project. So super exciting, and it really is a major milestone as we really look to improve this corridor. And then just kind of the look ahead. Tomorrow is Kids Day, and we will have nearly 150 children here in celebrations. And these kids, as you see from some of our social media efforts, many of these kids may be future operators, engineers. It's not uncommon to see them show up again once they get out of school. So we're super excited to host the kiddos. It is kind of following along with the national effort of the Take Our Daughters and Sons to Work Day. So this is always a big event. Also
Madam President?
on,
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, sorry, Sherry. I just
Yeah.
want to say I'll be bringing my almost 3-year-old again this year, and I think he can probably list off like 20 different types of trucks and equipment. So he's going to be even more excited to like use with guidance, of course, so use some of the machines. So anyway, very excited.
well,
Been
and as you
talking it
know,
up today.
we've got some tours that will happen in the morning, but we also have some fun activities for the kids in the afternoon. So it should be a
Fabulous.
very fun day.
Thanks, Sherry.
So,
What time does it start again?
we start at 8 o'clock.
That's what I thought.
Yep,
Okay, thank
yep.
you.
So, moving on, also on Friday, we'll be hosting a law enforcement partner tour with our new state-of-the-art TOC Center. As a part of that tour, we're really hoping to begin some discussion on collaborative efforts of we can work together and mutually benefit our customers from that new center. So excited about that. We also have on Saturday, the Jim Hall Learning Center is hosting their 20th anniversary celebration. We're really excited to be there with the sweeper truck or a sweeper, and we're going to be providing information about the 8th Street, the work being done on the 8th Street extension. On the 29th and 30th, we'll have team members at a couple different tablings to solicit public involvement on the Build the Boise Bench projects. Also, moving forward, May 8th, we will be hosting our all staff at the new TOC Center. So as always, we would love to have you attend. If you're interested in attending, please let Stacy know. But it'll be a great opportunity to show our entire team the new TOC. And then just lastly, a quick reminder, next Wednesday is the 5th Wednesday, so we will not have a commission meeting next week. So. And then finally, we are excited to have a couple of special guests with us today. I'd like to invite Bonnie and Grace up to join me. As you know, we recently held a bake sale. We do a bake sale each year. This year it was spearheaded by our communications team, as well as Holly Lee and Carrie Kniesel. All of our bakers were from our team. They had some incredible desserts, and as a part of the process, we decided that all of the funds raised from the bake sale would go to an organization called Wish Granters. We actually had 2 of our team members that recently lost their sister-in-law, Kayla Lee, after a long battle with cancer. Kayla and her family were recipients of a Wish Granters trip to Green Bay for a Packers game. And in honor of her and in support of her and her family, we're excited to present this huge check for $1,965. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This
you.
is,
So excited. Would you like to say?
sure,
Absolutely.
yeah, so Kayla's wish was pretty. Oh, right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Kayla's wish was a pretty special one. My husband Doug is one of the board members, and I'm also on the board. Grace is a board member. And in part because Kayla was so excited about this. It made it so much fun, and she was so thankful for everything we were able to do. Wish Granters was founded in 2010, actually by my husband Doug. He had worked for children's nonprofits for many years and wish granting organizations. And while those are very much needed, he saw that there was a gap. There was nothing, once a person turned 18, there was nothing for them. And so he founded Wish Granters in July of 2010. And in December of 2010, we granted our first wish. And that was to a gentleman who had ALS, and he wanted to go on a helicopter ride with his wife and 2 sons. And since that time, we've done over 500 wishes. We're a small nonprofit. We're in Ada, Canyon, and Gem County. We're trying to expand into Boise County. That's our hope for this year. And because we're a small one and we rely on donations, this is huge for us. You know, it's so special. And again, I didn't know Kayla, but I could tell from our interactions with her what a special family, what a special person she was, and what a special family they are. So thank you so much for doing this. It's appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes my report. So if I'll stand for any questions.
Madam President? Oh,
Commissioner
I'm sorry,
McKinney?
just, one quick question back on the Fairview Bridge
Yes,
issue. So the money that we've got is just for the design of the replacement
Correct.
bridge? Okay.
correct.
And what's kind of our anticipated time frame for replacing this bridge?
That's
And
a
is
great
there
question.
likely to be an avenue to get federal funding for the bridge itself?
That's a great question. Diane will come up and assist with that.
Hello, Commissioners. Diane Bevins, Deputy Director of Projects. So Commissioner McKinney, we are pursuing federal funds for the Fairview Avenue Bridge. We're going to be applying for, there's a certain name, you know, the federal program has lots of names. There's a bridge program, and we will be seeking funds through that as a grant opportunity, but also, you know, looking in the future, and it's one of our top requests to fund it for construction. So we'll be constantly looking for federal funds, and we think there's an avenue to
Great.
get it funded.
Do you happen to know what the bridge rating is for that one right now? It's condition rating? Because on a 100-point scale, normally if it's below
Right.
50, there's funding available, or at least
And
potentially
yes,
available.
Commissioner McKinney, the Eckert Bridge and then the Healy Bridge were the only 2 in the county that have that rating.
Okay,
So we're getting obviously Eckert funded, but so Fairview's not in that category yet, but we know it needs to be replaced in the next 5 to 10 years kind of time frame. So that's why we're starting the design now and hopefully
okay.
get it funded.
Does the state handle the inspections of that bridge, just like with the Eckerd Road Bridge
Yes,
and so
sir.
on?
Yes.
Okay. I wonder if we might get some specific information, because I know, as a former bridge inspector myself, I know that many of the inspection rating criteria have a little bit of subjectivity to them.
Yes.
And if there's in some cases, 2 inspectors looking at the same bridge can come back with a slightly different condition rating, and that can have an effect on our ability to get funds. And for that reason, it might be a good idea if we can get updated inspections of that bridge. That could potentially help in any case.
Yes, and Commissioner McKinney, I don't know, and everyone, it's actually 2 bridges. So there's one that's almost 100 years old. There's one that's about 50 years old
Right.
where it was widened. And we have done several projects replacing riprap around the footings, to keep the, maintenance projects to keep the bridge in good condition. So
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, I was curious, what time is the law enforcement tour of the TOC? Is it like an open house or?
It is a formal tour. I will get back with you
Yeah,
on the exact time.
Email me. I might be interested in
Absolutely.
attending.
1 o'clock?
Okay.
1 o'clock,
Thank you.
absolutely.
All right. Thanks,
Cool.
Sherry.
All
Thanks
right.
for the report and all the updates. And,
Thank you.
We will be at ease until 6 o'clock. All right, it's now 6 o'clock. I will call the meeting to order. Thanks to everyone here in person and online. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the first item is to adopt the agenda. This motion.
So moved?
Okay.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next up is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a commissioner or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. All consent agenda items are commission action items unless noted. We do have a request to move item number 2 to the regular agenda to item number 3. Do we have a motion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
I move that we approve consent agenda item 1 and move item 2 to the regular agenda.
Second?
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 1 is a request for reconsideration. This is an action item. A request for reconsideration has been received for the commission. Previous decision on the Meadowwood Drive vacation heard on April 19, 2025. Steve?
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, for the record, Steve Price, General Counsel. If you recall last week, the commission acted on this application. I think it was April 16th. At that time, the commission made a motion to grant the vacation, waive the fees, filing fees, but did not grant the request on the waiver of the fair market, the charge for the fair market value. So as we know today, we've got a motion for reconsideration, and our policy states that any member who voted in favor of that last week's motion can move for reconsideration this week. You all 5 voted for the motion last week, so you are all eligible to make the motion and second it this week. If the motion to reconsider is made and seconded, it is subject to a motion to postpone to a certain time. So we typically would schedule that for next week. And at that time, the matter is in its original form as if it was last week. So the commission would then consider the whole matter anew. One of the standards you have to meet, we've reviewed the request for reconsideration. It does meet our policies. It was timely. It does meet those standards. The second standard for you tonight is the request for consideration must be supported by written documentation setting forth new facts and information not presented at the earlier meeting or change situation that has developed since the taking of the earlier vote or information establishing an error of fact or in law in the earlier action. The applicant is entitled to testify on their behalf. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, Commissioner Nielsen?
This is really governed by Title 40 and state law of
Correct.
vacations.
There's a little Title 50 in there,
Mhm.
but yes.
And I looked at the application that we have at the district, and it mirrors state law. But what I didn't understand is that it seems to be permissive in that the commission may. But I was curious on, we have a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers to not just give things away. But I didn't see or direct me to where we have kind of a formal reckoning or written request for consideration of other contributions relative to the costs. It's just not The equivalent would be at a county where you'd have a request for a hardship and you would have a form that would detail those numbers. We don't seem to have a process, or even, I'm not even sure if we should have one. So I don't know
Right,
if you
well,
could just speak to the
sure.
fair market value, if there's a requirement for that.
No, Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, it does not surprise me one bit that you looked into that.
Oh.
The may is, affords the commission sole discretion. Okay? A lot of people may not know this, but we rarely grant waivers. The commission has rarely exercised discretion. And in fact, it's usually been under really, you had good facts and good law, and was distinguishable from probably the other 100 of vacation applications we get in a year. So it's very unusual, but we've always looked at it, and we like to give the commission as much discretion as they can, and we've never in policy imposed any specific criteria because we like the commission to have that flexibility, because not every vacation application is different. You have to kind of look at it on a case-by-case basis. So that's why we do that. Now, if the commission would like for us to establish some criteria, we can do that. We would probably follow the same criteria in many of the land use contexts.
And then,
Madam President?
oh, I had one.
Oh,
so
sorry, go
One
ahead.
follow-up now is, now regarding the appraisal of the property, is there any particular, maybe it's not a legal question, so I apologize. I mean, there's all different methods of appraisal. We've seen land values escalate, but is our shoestring rights of way, or, my background's more in railroad abandonments, that they're just unique properties. And I'm curious if that's reflected in the type of appraisal that's done.
Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, we do really the standard over the fence appraisal method. We're only valuing the right of way, and the right of way is really valued in accordance with the value of the adjacent property. There have been some cases in vacations where it's really just waste property.
Yeah.
And it has served no function, nor will it. It was just a little piece in a plat that got cut off. Those are the kind of situations there, but no, the value is really over the fence kind of a look. And that's standard in the industry.
Thank you.
Commissioner McKinney?
Yeah, Steve, just to clarify then, to make it so that I'm clear what we're considering tonight, well, so that everyone's clear, the only question before us here right now is whether there are new facts or a change in circumstances or some sort of legal error that justifies reconsideration. That's all that's in front of us. The other facts of the case and the other issues, we set them aside. We decide only on the reconsideration question.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, that's absolutely correct. And any information that they submitted as part of their request. That's what you consider tonight.
Thank you.
All right. If the applicant would like to testify, you're welcome to come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Don Huffman. My address is 4035 East Meadowwood Drive in Meridian. We are attending this meeting this evening to ask HHD for reconsideration of the vacation approval, specifically regarding the appraisal value for both the Huffmans and the Ludermans residing at 4035 East Meadowwood Drive and 4040 East Meadowwood Drive, respectively. The original vacation hearing was held on April 16th at 12 p.m. We are providing I'm providing the following points of interest for our reconsideration request. The applicants were somewhat surprised when it was announced that there would be no relief for the full appraisal price would be given. The full appraisal cost would seem to be excessive if relief wasn't granted for the Huffmans and Ludermans, especially the current uncertainty of the economic conditions. The Huffmans and Ludermans are not developers with large amounts of capital at their disposal. but rather residential homeowners looking to improve them and maintain their properties, including the adjacent right-of-way. The rights-of-way for both Huffman's and Luderman's have been maintained for over 50 years by the homeowners. We believe that this should be taken into consideration as credit toward the valuation of the rights-of-way. Time, effort, and expense over a long period of time is not trivial, and we would like to see some relief for that commitment of maintaining the rights-of-way. We would like to propose with that each applicant, the Huffmans and Ludermans, pay the amount of $10,000 to cover the ACHD expenses as the purchase price of each right-of-way, as it has been surveyed. ACHD would grant relief for the balance of the appraised value and have Ada County Assessor's Office add that appraised value to our existing property tax base. That's all I have, but Wendy Luderman has additional details that she has researched, and she will cover that, and we're both available after that for any additional discussion that may be needed. That's all I had. I just want to thank you for your time and consideration.
Sure. Is any questions for Don? All right. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Wendy Luderman. I reside at 4040 East Meadowood Drive, Meridian, Idaho. Just like Don just said, we're here requesting reconsideration of the vacation hearing originally heard April 16th. During our hearing, the commission agreed to the vacation. However, there was discussion related to our request for financial relief. I apologize for not being previously aware of protocol during meetings. Only testified once before, and it was probably 15 years ago. However, during the discussion among commissioners, it seemed unclear as to what relief, if any, was actually rendered. Both applicants weren't aware, nor were we told that we could have come back to the podium to offer further information during the discussion and possibly been involved in that. We left the meeting feeling really confused. And after we spoke with ACHD right-of-way staff, who also stated that they weren't aware that we could have offered further testimony. In fact, we were told that they thought it might have actually been inappropriate to just come back up to speak to the discussion that was happening with the attorney at the time. It wasn't until a couple days later that we learned we could have asked to address the commission again and provide more information during the discussion. We also found out on Friday that we could be given an opportunity to request reconsideration by 11 a.m. Monday morning. The rights of way were dedicated when the original plat for Clover Meadows subdivision number 3 was recorded June 1st, 1971. We understand that there were rules that the dedicating families had to adhere to, including rights of way as possible future roadways as needed by ACHD at the time. I would guess that those rules and regulations have been modified over the years since. That said, the rights of way were dedicated with no fees or charges assessed to Ada County or CHD by those people dedicating the land. The properties no longer offer roadway construction as they are landlocked at both the northern and southern boundaries. In approximately 2011, while Kleiner Park was still in the process of being planned, the commission held a meeting and voted that no roadways were to be attached to East Meadowood Drive or to East Green Meadow Drive directly to our north. Idaho Statute Title 440 Section I states that if the commissioners determine that a highway or public right-of-way parcel to be abandoned and vacated in accordance with the provisions of the section has a fair market value of $2,500 or more, a charge may be imposed upon the acquiring entity. We understand that although this land was dedicated freely to ACHD in 1971 as recorded, that there is a current appraisal value. We also pray that the commission acknowledge that we are not developers with large sums of capital at our disposal, but residential homeowners wishing to continue with kind stewardship to the land that has been used and maintained by said homeowners for over 50 years. It would take more than our lifetimes to recoup the amount of that appraisal cost. That said, we understand the request of ACHD for a possible in-kind payment as a purchase price, and we respect that. We would like to propose a purchase price of $10,000 by each party, which we feel is fair and reasonable. The appraiser notes in their formal paperwork that to assess the value of the narrow rights of way, they used a market value approach based on the parcels of land that our homes currently sit on. He also noted that our parcels are improved with single-family homes and shops. Our residential district is zoned R1 with an allowed density of one dwelling per unit acre. specifically noting that the vacation area has a rectangular but very narrow configuration which limits its development potential. He concludes that the highest and best use for the vacation area is for assemblage with the adjoining larger parcels that our homes are currently on to be used as a single-family home site. As stated in our reconsideration request, we have worked with both ACHD and the City of Meridian during the planning of Kleiner Park. The city and county asked if we would be agreeable to keeping what had been used as driveways for both households as emergency turnaround areas. They didn't want to put the same type of L-shaped turnaround at the end of East Meadowood Drive that they were having to use on East Green Meadow Drive because it would encroach on the designed walking path in Kleiner Park. Our commitment to ACHD, the City of Meridian, and our neighbors has always been paramount. We appreciate the opportunity to request reconsideration from our original hearing specifically related to financial relief. We understand that this might be carried over if reconsideration is granted for final determination. We acknowledge the county's wish to collect payment, and we also understand the statute allows for relief if determined by the commission to be granted. And we hope that our in-kind efforts are ultimately accepted based on today's testimony. I was listening to the questions you were asking of the attorney, and I might not a legal expert. I did work for the state though for a long time with a lot of attorneys. So when we tried to look at records, I would have had to submit a public records request to determine how many vacations were actually made by developers or commercial entities versus residential. Our understanding is that fees probably wouldn't be waived for developers who have lots of money and they're going to be subdividing and building either commercial or residential type structures. That isn't possible with these two particular rights of way. So we would hope that maybe you would also consider that, and that there have been waivers for residents in the same positions we're in currently. So again, we really appreciate it. If there's something more I can add, thank you for looking up the title. I did so as well. And I
Commissioners,
did
any
bring the
questions for Wendy?
information from the appraisal.
I have a question
Commissioner
first.
Pickering?
Thank you, Madam President. I have a question for Carrie or Steve. It's my understanding, right, when a property owner submits a request, that part of that is it's listed there that they would be paying for the assessed value. Is that correct?
Madam President, Commissioner Pickering, that is correct.
And then what other parts of the process do we talk about that assessed value and how the applicant would be paying for that?
Well, it really isn't the assessed value. There's another provision in Idaho code that says that you would take, back in 2008, we had assessed values, if you remember, that were a lot higher than the actual market value. So you have to pay the higher of the two. So in this case, the assessed value is much less than the market value. And so they go by the market value.
Okay, market value. So I guess like for Mr. Huffman, like that was part of the original application process. So I guess I'm confused as to why there was, things lost in the process about how there could be relief when that was part of the initiating the process. So I don't know if you have anything, Mr. Huffman, to speak to that. I'll say it a different way. So my question to staff was, to initiate the vacation request, it clearly states that part of that request is you would be paying for the market value of that property if we were to grant that vacation request. So I guess my question to you is, did you understand that? And if you did, I guess that's why I'm questioning why this reconsideration.
I think we were under the impression that it was not uncommon especially for places that were useless for ACHD, that there wouldn't be a relief given for that.
Got it. Thank you, sir.
Madam President?
Commissioner McKinney?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for either Don or Jamie, either one of you that would like to, or Wendy, sorry, to answer these. Question number one, the key fact here today is, are there new facts that we didn't take into account in our previous decision or a change in circumstances or a legal error. And in listening to your comments, I haven't really been able to peg that down. Can you help me? What facts were we not aware of last week that were material to this that we haven't considered already?
I feel like because we had so little time before we were told that we could even have this opportunity, we really rushed to even get the reconsideration request submitted. So I appreciate your patience with that. I think the fact that we did some research as far as when it was originally platted and how that was structured in June of 1971, also offering the appraiser's own words from the appraisal that he did. And he mentions in there, actually, I think I had 8 different pieces of paper when I went through it this last weekend, where he mentions that this land should absolutely be gotten rid of by the county, rather than just kept on the books for no reason. We have a license agreement, so we use it, although nobody had license agreements from 1971 all the way through until 2014. And it's been, so there's that. We also didn't know what the statute was with regard to it, and how that read. I will say in our conversations when we were going through this process that we started last October, we were given the impression that there was oftentimes waivers given toward payment, especially in these types of situations, because of the fact that the commission voted during the planning of Kleiner Park that those roads would never be expanded or extended in any way, shape, or form on either side of our neighborhood. And that it was more common for residential, not maybe so much for commercial or developer type situations.
Well, let me ask if I may, your comments about the appraisal. I think we had the appraisal in front of us last week when we considered it.
Well, it was
and those-
80 pages. Did you read through them?
Well, in any case, all those details were in front of the commission. They're all part of the record, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. They were provided to the right-of-way
And,
department.
in fact, as we discussed it, we discussed the use of the property and the benefits and so on. So it seems to me that the facts that you're mentioning are things that we've already considered. So what is there that's
I
new?
guess I don't recall that there was a discussion about the use of the property. I could be mistaken.
Well, I
don't-
think we certainly talked about the fact that the property is sort of, as a matter of fact, it is mostly being used by your property owners, right?
Right.
It more or
Right.
less is part of your backyards already, correct?
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
and we definitely discussed that, right? How it's not operating as a road today, and it's not just empty and abandoned, that it's more or less seamlessly involved. So in any case, those facts we've all considered. The one fact that you did mention that I don't believe that we discussed was that when the plat was originally made, the property was dedicated to ACHD with the original plats. And that's common. That's quite common with developments, is that developers, as a condition for developing, they dedicate right-of-way to the county. But I guess the key thing about facts is, material facts. Would that fact make any difference? And I'm not sure that I see any way that it could or would. I may be wrong in what I'm saying. If I am, somebody correct me. But, we buy millions of dollars worth of right-of-way every year, but we also have where there are developers that right-of-way gets dedicated to ACHD every year. So that's, that's the simple facts of how roads are built and so on. Okay. And I don't mean to belabor this. Let me ask you a hypothetical question then.
Okay.
If you were to try to sell your property today without this vacation happening,
Never do it.
right? You've got the right-of-way that cuts off right there a piece of that property, and you tried to sell it today. Seems to me reasonable that fact of the right-of-way being there would have an effect on the market value of your property, would it not?
When you say that, are you meaning with it still being retained by the highway district?
Right.
Well, when I don't know that it would have an effect. in the positive or the negative. I feel like it's kind of a moot point. You use it. I mean, it's there. We mow it, we take care of it, we irrigate it, we do all the
Right.
stuff to it. But it wouldn't be included in, it couldn't be included in, as the
In the
appraiser,
deed.
in the appraiser said, it's, right, it makes much more sense to integrate it into the parcel that currently exists. And I did talk to
Right.
land records and they were like, yep, if they do it, then they can get it done. And we just have a legal description written for the whole thing and it merges. Now, if where I think you're headed, if it was vacated and then at some point down the road, obviously it expands the value of our property because then we would have ownership of it. I can tell you though, that people in our neighborhood either die there because you can't find property like that. It's very hard to find property like that in Meridian. That's also unincorporated Ada County. And, you know, there's good and bad that comes with that, but we love where we live. It feels like you're in the country, but you're in the middle of the city. It's just, it's a wonderful living opportunity. But I don't think most of the people who've lived there have lived there forever, or it's passed down to their family member upon their death. I mean, it's kind of a moot point. If it stays in the Ada County Highway District's hands, then it's there.
I think, and I guess what I'm getting at
But
is
if we ever
this.
wanted to build or, you know, like expand our shop
Sure.
or do something, then that could be an issue because you
And
still have
really-
a property boundary.
Really, my question is this. I think it would be reasonable to agree, and maybe this is not so much a question as a comment
Okay.
from my standpoint, that without this vacation, with no change in the way things are, that would have an effect on the resale value. Not that you're trying to sell, but if you tried to sell. Eventually, someday these properties will sell, maybe 1 year, 5 years, 50 years from now, who knows? Eventually, they will sell. If that right of way is still there, that would have an effect on the market value of the property.
It would,
If the vacation happens and the right of way goes away, that would have an effect in the other direction. And so really.
correct. It has a negative effect. I guess if that's what you're saying, you feel like it would have a
Right.
negative effect on us because we don't technically own that strip. Is that what is that what
Right.
I'm hearing?
So-
Okay.
So here's the point. The value changes as a result of the action that we would take here. And there's a value attached to it from the standpoint of this vacation. It's entirely, now, I completely understand that, you know, if I were asked to suddenly come up with $80,000 or $90,000 to pay for some property, I can certainly understand an average person having, you know, a difficulty doing that right away. That's not uncommon. I'm not at all surprised at that. If the vacation doesn't go through today, and things stay as they are until the next time the property is sold, then the sale of the property would be the financial source for paying for acquiring the additional property. What I'm saying is this: coming up with 90,000 out of your pocket, I recognize that's a thing. If the property is being sold, however, there's a transaction that can pay for that. So my comment is this: if this is a problem now, then forget about it until the next time the property sells, whenever that is, whether that's 1 year, 5 years, or 50 years from now. And then the transaction of the sale of the property will cover it,
Okay.
rather than trying to do it now.
Can I
Why not
speak to
take
that?
that approach?
Okay, because, well, first of all, you have no idea what the value will be in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, whatever that will look like. I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like if you look at it like that, our hope is to leave our home to our son, who wouldn't have to purchase it. It would be gifted to him upon our death as an inheritance, right? But they would still have to, the survey that was done on it is good forever, but the appraisal isn't. And that was $25,000 or $3,000. It was not cheap. And then you still have to reapply and go through the same process. And you would have no way to know. I mean, as the seller, you're saying, okay, do it after you get the money, but the process took us 5 months. And and is the seller going to wait? Like, I don't understand how that would work. You're basically saying that use the money from the sale of a house to buy the vacation down the road, but I don't see how that's feasible. Because I don't know that the buyer isn't going to want to do that because they're not going to know what who knows what the application,
Thanks, Wendy.
I'm lost.
Commissioner McKinney, do you have any follow-up questions? I'm gonna move this on. if
No,
that's
no, I
okay.
think,
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm gonna ask a question to Steve, so I'll just ask you guys to step
Okay,
away. from the
thank
podium.
you.
Thank you. Steve, can you just speak to this kind of idea that about like waiving the appraisal costs? Or yeah, this idea that we have a history of waiving or giving relief and the kind of list of conditions that the commission might need to consider, et cetera.
Thank you, Madam President and Commissioners. I can only think of 2 instances in 25 years of my service that the commission's ever waived the fair market value. One was over here on Adams Street. A lady, it was a piece that I'm not even sure we thought we owned. She was, had hard economic times. Her father had just passed. She had just inherited the house. She didn't know what to do. And I think in that instance, she had also cared for the property, but that's, and by the way, most of the vacations we get, there involves some landscaping. It just is. And the fact that the applicant is requesting a waiver based on that, well, much of that, you can look at it another way, and I think it's the way we look at it, especially under a license agreement. We've granted them possession of that property free, except for $150 a year license fee, to use that property as if it's their own. And they ask to landscape it, and they get to enjoy it during that time. And so that's what the license agreement affords those people. And they voluntarily incur that cost to do that. But the only time that I've ever seen it has been in really strong economic hardships. It has nothing to do with whether it's a developer, commercial, or residential. We get, my guess is we probably get a balance of both commercial. We deal with developer ones almost under a different provision in the code. One thing I would also like to note is, Commissioner McKinney, is that in terms of the way that they value property, all the assessors, they don't discount whether you're, well, they don't discount the value of the property by the virtue of the fact that it's adjacent to a right-of-way. Much of the assessed values are very clear. They don't account for that. Many of the rights-of-way go out to the middle of the road because they're prescriptive. So, and I only raise that just as a side note, but it really is in the commission's discretion. And I think the commission in their own mind have come up with their own factors in those particular cases.
Thanks, Steve.
And I wish, you know, but it's, again, it's evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The only thing that I ask is that if you do grant the waiver, is that you put the justification in the record. It's very important that you do that.
Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, Steve, when you were responding to Commissioner Pickering's question, when I look at the application, it requires an appraisal, but it doesn't say that they have to pay fair market value. It just repeats state law that says that over 2,500, the commission may, you know, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's
Yes.
been the default.
Yeah.
And the exception would be if you grant the waiver.
Right.
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yes, I must say I've been a part of every vacation we've had in this agency since January 1st of 2015. And there have been just an infinitesimal number of those, usually for square footage of under 200 or 300 square feet, where there might be a fire plug or something like that, as well as a little bit of landscaping. We have on a number of other occasions waived the $2,500 fee or refunded it back to the applicants. And so just so the commission knows, that is, whether it's a developer or a private citizen, that's about all we've ever done. Thank you.
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, Madam President, with that, I'll like to make a motion. So I'll move to deny the request for reconsideration.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney?
I'm inclined to agree with that. I think, you know, we wish no ill to the property owners, but the conditions for reconsidering are that new facts, change of circumstances, error of law, and so on. And I don't see that there has been any of that shown here. And likewise, everything that's been followed has been done, as has been said, the way it's always been done in the past. And I think the process that's been followed has been appropriate under the circumstances. I don't see any reason to reconsider.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next up is item number 2, the Table Rock vacation. Over to you again, Steve.
Thank you, Madam President, Commissioner Steve Price, General Counsel for the record. If you recall back, I think it was February 16th, the commission had sent me to work with the users, the current users of the Table Rock Road to find some consensus in the easements that would be drafted and the quitclaim deed. I have had the chance, there's 8 or 9 users. We had to do a title search to make sure we didn't exclude any property owners in the area. Well, that opened up a can of worms because that property's been transferred. A lot of the people that own the land are deceased, and so we had to chase down some heirs in California. Anyway, it's been quite a project. But we got to the point, we had a meeting, finally had a meeting last week with the Boise JCs and the masonry folks. And it became apparent at that time that much of the objection to the vacation, if you recall, there was some confusion as to why they had objected to it. But it turns out that their objection was over the fact that Mr. Bates owns the land that is south of the most southern terminus of the public right-of-way. So the right-of-way is about 800 feet, and then there's another 1,000 feet to the cross. He owns that land. And they have been using that land as access to the cross as well as the masonry for numerous years. And I don't think anybody, and I think I went back and listened to the meeting, I think the applicant even admitted that he's not trying to deny them access. And virtually when we told them that we would help address the easement for that additional right-of-way, then their opposition to the vacation immediately went away. So in any event, we had a meeting again on Monday with Mr. Bates and the Boise JCs and the Masonry Center. I tried to get them back to the table to try and find some consensus. And it's apparent at that meeting that they have consensus and they're currently working on easement language to satisfy the parties of all the users. And so in order to do that, the applicant has, I believe, sent a letter to the commission requesting a deferral for them, give them the opportunity to try and resolve that issue, that sole issue. They have told me that it's probably, there's no hurry, but they probably need a couple of weeks to get that done. And so that is the request for deferral. The reason why it needed to come tonight is the commission had set a date certain. So it has to come on the agenda, it has to be open. And I guess with this request for deferral, we would request that it be deferred for an additional 2 weeks.
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering?
so with that, willing to make a motion to defer the Table Rock Road vacation, and I'll just say too, no date certain to give some flexibility.
Second,
We've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering?
just want to say thanks to staff for following up on this, because that was a long vacation and public hearing. So thanks for your due diligence to finding a solution, and looking forward to seeing what that looks like when they come back.
Any other comments, discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next up is item number 3, previously number 2 from the consent agenda, license agreement for the installation of cameras, request for approval. Over to Justin. Commissioner McKinney, do you?
yes, shall I start on this? Let me mention my reasons for requesting that we put this on the regular agenda. In looking through this license agreement with the Meridian Police Department, I'm concerned that it looks like kind of a cookie cutter boilerplate type agreement, a license agreement, and doesn't really address several of the basic concerns with cameras. The Ada County Highway District has hundreds of cameras on intersections and roadway segments all over the county. And if you go visit our new traffic operations center, you can see the fancy new place where we monitor all of those cameras and so on. But we're not a law enforcement agency. Our cameras are only out there to look at traffic accidents and those sorts of issues. Meridian Police Department is in law enforcement, and anytime you start getting into cameras, there are lots of people who, rightly in my view, have concerns about potential, I guess civil liberties concerns is what they're concerned about. Not wanting us to trend toward becoming a surveillance state, as has happened in many places. And I think these concerns are valid. I can see both sides of the arguments for and against cameras, but this agreement doesn't really address any of those concerns at all, one way or the other. And that's my concern with it. For example, the agreement does not outline what data will be collected, whether it will just be images of vehicles, license plates, individuals in vehicles, whether facial recognition software can be used for drivers and so on, how the data is collected, how it is stored, how long it is stored, what happens to it, and so on. None of those details are in here now. Those details are primarily the concern of the police department. At the same time, as a public agency whose infrastructure is being used for these purposes, I think we do still have an interest in knowing about these things because, for example, any technology that's available for use and that can be used for either, entirely laudable and good purposes, but also has a potential for abuse, that's where we need to be careful. And there need to be safeguards put in place. And I think as a public agency who's being asked to allow our infrastructure to be used for this purpose, we have an interest in making sure that those safeguards, certain reasonable safeguards, are in place. And that's why I'm concerned this agreement doesn't deal with any of that. And furthermore, if you look at paragraph 5 of the agreement, the term, it indicates that the agreement, it gives a term for the agreement and says it'll automatically renew for successive annual terms. And that's it. So this is an agreement that goes on forever. It has no termination in it. It's not a pilot program as we've done in other cases. It just, boom, here it is and away we go. And that's why I'm concerned that we don't have any conditions. For example, if we find that 2 or 3 years from now, City of Meridian is using these cameras for facial recognition purposes and handing over that data for tracking purposes, for tracking people who may or may not be accused of a crime or anything like that, under this agreement, we wouldn't have any ability to object. And I think we ought to have that ability to reasonably say, we don't want our infrastructure to be used for purposes that the majority of people are going to look at and say, we don't want that, or at least they have major questions about it. those are my concerns. So please help me out.
Madam President, members of the commission, thank you. For the record, Justin Lucas, Chief of Operations and Infrastructure at the Highway District. I'll do my best, Commissioner McKinney, to address staff's approach to this agreement and why some of the items that you have raised may not be explicitly described within the agreement. In these situations, historically, staff has taken the position that what we are licensing is a piece of equipment to be attached to ACHD infrastructure. The use of that piece of equipment, all of the potential legalities related to that piece of equipment that you raised, based on this agreement, fall solely on the Meridian Police Department. And ACHD, by not naming any of that or attempting to try and name every possible misuse of the equipment, essentially is taking the stance that we are not in a place to analyze the use of that equipment from a legal perspective to determine whether or not it's being used properly. This is staff's perspective bringing you this agreement. That's what I'm providing. There, you may disagree. I'm just giving you the framework that we worked under to bring this forward. When it comes to termination, though, there is a clause in paragraph 6 that clearly states that either party may, in their sole discretion, once again, for whatever reason we want, terminate this license for any reason or no reason by providing at least 30 days prior written notice to the other party. So if at any time the commission or staff becomes aware of something, has any concerns, this would come before the commission. It would be terminated within 30 days, and the commission would not even have to provide a reason why. So I think it's the most broad ability to terminate the agreement that we could possibly write within it. And so I'm giving you the framework we approached it on. I think when you get into, at least from my perspective, and I know, and Steve may want to weigh in, but when you get into those issues that you raised of how or why or if or maybe how it's used, I think it would be very challenging for staff without clear direction from the commission to establish those parameters. We have no method to do so. We simply would look to the Meridian Police Department to follow the law, and that would be solely under their responsibility and jurisdiction in this situation. We're simply allowing them to attach a piece of equipment to our signal pole, mast arm, and to operate that piece of equipment under the terms of this agreement and the law.
Well, you know, and I'm glad, I think Steve is coming up here, and I'm glad he is, because I think as I look at this agreement, I wonder if we couldn't put, and maybe the solution here, and I understand how you want it to be as broad as possible. Perhaps we could add a sentence to paragraph 6, at least giving some sort of conditions, broadly stated, conditions that, you know, if it appears, and I'm just sort of, you know, throwing out some language here, but if it appears that the facilities are being used for in ways that reasonably could be considered to violate the civil liberties of, you know, the people of the county. In other words, we would, things to look for, that is what I'm saying. In paragraph 6 could add a non-exclusive list of general concepts that if it looks like this is being used for nefarious purposes or for something beyond the law or what have you, that we would have, that it would be specifically mentioned in paragraph 6 rather than just being left vague.
Madam President, Commissioners, again, Steve Price for the record. Commissioner McKinney, we most certainly can add language to paragraph 6 if that's your desire. I think that, again, I think Justin's comments hit the point, and that is that, for instance, we have we have some people who put things on our poles. You've got Verizon, you've got all these. We can't control the content or what they use with that equipment under a license agreement or otherwise. And I think we look at this the same way. We can't, nor do we want to be responsible. They're simply, this is a license agreement for them to use a pole. They're the ones that are ultimately going to have to answer for any violations. Having said that, we also have another provision in there that allows us to terminate basically at any time. So if the police, Meridian Police, they misbehave, and I doubt they do very often, but if they misbehave, we most certainly could, under that agreement, we most certainly can call default, or we can just simply terminate it. And so we've always looked at, we have a perfect out. We also don't want to get involved in how other people use our polls, just because there's inherent buy-in or ownership with that they are standing on their own. The only thing that's standing is on our polls. And so I think that's the way staff looks at it. But it's the will of the commission. I'm most certainly happy to take a second look at the agreement and bolster up paragraph 6. Happy to do that. It's your call.
Commissioner Nielsen.
Said all the comments. I'm ready to make a motion, Madam
Motion's in
President.
order. Oh,
Oh.
Commissioner Goldthorpe has his hand up first.
Thank you. I would tend to agree 100% with Steve and Justin. I think that every commission that I have had the pleasure of serving with would, this may be the wrong word, but if we detected any mischief of any kind, for lack of a better word, we would love the opportunity to terminate an agreement that we thought was being misused. And Steve's smiling, I can see it from here. But that's the way we are. And so I think it's just fine the way it is. Thank you.
Commissioner Nielsen.
I'll go for it.
Yeah, Madam President, I'll move that we approve the license agreement for the installation of cameras between ACHD and the city of Meridian.
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney.
let me just say, I can understand the motion. I can understand the desire to go forward with this. I personally would like to see something additional in paragraph 6, and that's why, even if it's, in any case, something broad that would at least give us something to hang our hat on would be helpful. And for that reason, I'm going to vote against this.
I can appreciate the position, Commissioner McKinney. I agree with the motion. I'll support it. I think that keeping the language broad and it has the, allowance in there for us to terminate for any reason at any time. And I think that's appropriate. And so I'll support the motion. Okay.
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering.
I just want to say thank you to our partners from Meridian Police Department for sitting through this somewhat long, short meeting today to sit through this. And we really appreciate your partnership and the work that you do. And it's an honor to help you in some facility, in some way. And if this license agreement is one of those ways that we can be good partners, fully support that. So thank you again for all that you do.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed?
No.
All right, motion passes. All right, that moves us to discussion items. Public communications, is there anyone here in person or online that would like to address the commission? All right, seeing none, the meeting is adjourned. That moves us into the post-commission agenda, and we have one work session. Welcome back, Justin, the 5-year plan implementation strategy work session.
Madam President, members of the commission, for the record, again, Justin Lucas, the Chief of Operations and Infrastructure here at the Highway District. Just wanted to take this opportunity to give just a brief presentation as we start moving into the kind of meat and potatoes of the 5-year plan process and the budget process, which are very closely connected. Provide some kind of high-level items that we're looking at and talking about and giving you obviously some information. You'll notice a very large packet that was provided to you today, providing information related to public comments and our partner agency requests. So I'll walk through this and hopefully can make it brief, but primarily here to answer questions you have. Just to highlight, so today's discussion right there at the top, city and partner priorities. We have an open process every year where we make these requests. We have formally received all of those requests now, and you have all of them in front of you today. What we're providing with you is the raw data, which includes the letter they provided, the list that they provided. This is not in any way interpreted by staff. It's what they asked for. I do want to note, sometimes if you look at their spreadsheet, they may have a programming category or a year. Sometimes they modify those without asking us. And so please don't take that as the gospel truth, the programming year, let's say for construction of a project. It may be an old year that hung over from last time. Christy in the future will be providing you with all of the updated information on all programming stuff. So just want to make that one note that the lists and their priorities, that's very clear, but some of the supplemental data, they use that for different purposes. And so I just wanted to highlight that as you review it and go through everything. Another big thing which we kicked off later last year, and that's going to be a big topic of conversation during this integrated 5-year work plan, is ACHD's pavement and bridge strategy. This is a large effort. As you can imagine, ACHD, with all of the assets we have to carefully consider the right funding levels and the right number of projects going in when it comes to our asset management and maintenance efforts. We are trying to carefully look at our bridge inventory, considering, recent events and other things that can happen related to bridges. We want to make sure as an agency we're in tip-top shape, have the best possible strategy to make sure that the public is safe, and that the bridges and structures that we have stewardship over are in very good condition, and that we have a method in place to replace those items that need to be replaced on a timely schedule. You've seen a lot about bridges lately with large bridges that we've talked about even today, and so that's something we'll be kind of highlighting as we walk through this program and go through the programming process for the integrated 5-year plan. The last thing I'll mention is the recent passage of Senate Bills 1140 and 1144 by the Idaho State Legislature, signed by the governor. ACHD staff is in the process of reviewing those bills, carefully considering how those impact potential programs and projects within the highway district. That's going to be a theme as we walk through this integrated 5-year plan and budget, making sure we're fully transparent with the commission about any potential needed modifications to our plans, projects, and programs to ensure that we're complying with those state laws. There's ideas and things going on there. These are relatively new, and we need time to work through this and to daylight these items with the commission appropriately. And so I wanted to let you know that we are working on that, and it will have some level of impact on our discussion as we go forward with the budget and the integrated 5-year work plan. So those are kind of the three big topics. I'll pause there if you have questions or concerns.
Thanks, Justin. I have a quick question about the pavement. And this might not be 5-year plan specifically, but over the last few months, we've been kind of assessing chip seal as a strategy. And so I'm wondering kind of what the timeline is on that, and if that will impact the discussion for this year's 5-year plan, if it's appropriate to have an update on that. Like if we're there status-wise. Yeah.
Madam President, members of the commission, absolutely. We anticipate coming back to the commission in the coming months with an update on our chip seal strategy and our overall pavement management strategy. And depending on how that goes, it can certainly have an impact on program levels within the plan. I think the first 2 years, the budget years, were usually relatively stable. Big swings in need or funding typically will hit in the outer years of the plan as we identify those needs and do that analysis. As you know, we hire outside consultants to do network evaluations, and we're carefully monitoring that data. Part of that is a policy discussion also about, the level of effort and the level of desire and maintenance we want to try and achieve. And so we try to weave all that into those conversations. But yes, that will be further conversation this fiscal year about those topics. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Nelson.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, because first I want to say, I think District 1 got the most comments. And going through, a lot of them are, community programs, a few for a bikeway, for example. So in the pavement strategy, would that give us timeframes where I could match up, or is that something the staff will do in terms of well, maybe we can't do this because of state law, but we could piggyback on it. I think what President Gold said, a chip seal or some other roadway project.
Yeah, Madam President, Commissioner Nielsen, I think it's a really interesting question and not something we've had to dive as deep into before. I think we will now. I think what we can start anticipating from that perspective is, you know, if indeed we're going to move towards, based on the state law, trying to attach these, you know, maybe bicycle and pedestrian improvements to other roadway improvements, we can probably start giving some general timeframes. Like if the roadway's in really great shape, we can, you know, essentially on a PCI scale, you know, it's scale from 0 to 100 and your roadway is sitting at an 82. The odds of ACHD going in anytime soon and doing a heavy maintenance project are relatively small. Now, so you may be looking, it may be 10 or 15 years, to be honest, about some of those. If that roadway is in a different level of shape and we think it's lower on that scale in the 50s or 60s, yeah, the odds of us getting in there are more likely within a certain time frame. So that's part of the questions and exploration I think we want to do with the commission as we start talking about these this program and these projects, and how we will implement it. So great question, and definitely something we'd have to dig a little bit more into.
Madam President, I just want to say thanks. This is a lot of great information. And I'm really glad we're getting it way in advance because I will read all 200 and
Excellent.
whatever, plus the other 400 from the other part of the county. But appreciate I know what it takes to produce something like that. So thank you.
Well, I
Yeah.
should never take the credit for anything
Well,
like
to your
this.
team, yeah.
The team, Christy Inselman
Yeah.
specifically, and her team in planning, they do the really the heavy lifting when it comes to managing this, all these requests and all these comments. And as you can see over time, they have created templates and formats that are hopefully really easy to read and understand.
Commissioner Pickering?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. Two things. One, I think I appreciate, again, echoing other statements about this, but want to emphasize, I feel like we're in a really good position to evaluate how we did chip seal and prepared for the chip seal from last summer to then see, okay, how can we also like build up the team to better evaluate these other places? So I think we're in a really good position, given some of the newest pilot and efforts from Tom and others to evaluate what opportunities are there for these zones that are being chip sealed. So I appreciate you looking ahead in that way, but also just want to flag that my first year on the commission 5 years ago, we did not have all these partner agencies submitting their comments in the integrated 5-year work plan. And I actually had to like double check because I thought we were missing somebody and we're not missing anybody. And that is amazing. And I just, again, that's like a testament to our relationships that we've built with these communities and these partners. The outreach that our team has done to make sure that folks are aware that this process is happening, making it easy for folks to comment and provide their input. So I think that's also a testament to success of our success, which also then helps us make better informed decisions about what is prioritized in this plan. So just huge kudos all along, like the magnitude of this input is quite a feat.
Agree. Commissioner Nielsen?
Yeah, one question. So what we got for the city of Star, was that prepared by Star and sent in that way? So with the changes in red, just want to make sure I'm reading that right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Madam President, members of the commission, Commissioner Nielsen. Yeah, everything you have there is prepared by Star. We give them kind of a template with some information, but once they get a hold of it, they do their own thing. And so we have to do some interpretation and we talk with them obviously and ask questions. But we want you to see the raw data without any filter from us. We have ways to organize it in all different ways, but we wanted you to see exactly how they request it. So.
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering?
I just want to, like, that was the one that I thought we didn't have because they, historically had a very inconsistent past of submitting their priorities. So it's really good to see that they're using the template, they're providing their priorities, like chef's kiss. It's amazing.
And
Commissioner Nielsen?
yeah, I would maybe add a little footnote when we received it, who sent it to us. Just, it's just unlike the other partners. So.
Got it. And we're glad to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Hi, yes, something that, at least for me, has has saved me a whole lot of time in this whole 5-year plan process, including the budget. As I've gone through my district, I've lived here for almost 50 years in my district, and I know it really quite well. And I don't know some of yours anywhere near as well. And I give you 100% of my confidence that what you want for your district is what's right. If I have any questions in going over all this stuff, and I'll give you a call. I won't wait until the night we make decisions on this to, in my opinion only, waste a half hour discussing things I could have figured out with your help 6 months before. And I would ask for the same courtesy. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Goldthorpe. Commissioner Nielsen?
Sorry, another
That's okay.
question maybe. So Justin, is this kind of raw comments and is this going to be available to the public? I mean, just so people get a perspective of everything that we're asked to do, the needs.
Absolutely, Commissioner. So a few years ago, we established a prioritization page on our website dedicated to the 5-year plan. On that page, all of this is listed and linkable. So if a citizen calls in and they want to say, hey, what's my city doing? What are they asking for? We got it posted on the website. What you see is what they can go see. So absolutely, that's how we do it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Just a few next steps, commissioners, as we work into this. You have a lot of information. Obviously, I need some time to work through that and think about it. We're also on our side at the staff level working through all of this and analyzing and doing different work to program. We will continue to do that work and continue to have connection points with you. Up next, an important work session on May 7th about revenue assumptions. We do these revenue assumptions for the upcoming budget, and then those roll into our 5-year plan revenue assumptions. So that's pretty straightforward. Christine Tandler, our budget manager, will be here to provide that work session and just go through, as we have every year, kind of the basic assumptions we're using to work through the revenue assumption process. And then on May 14th, our intention is to have a work session to go over in detail what we just provided you today. So you have 3 weeks to kind of work through it, and then hopefully bring your questions and comments. We'll have some further information as we coordinate with city staff. And that work session is where we kind of start the wonderful process of discussing things project by project and giving overall updates of where we're at.
Thanks, Justin. At what point will the commission have one-on-one meetings with planning staff about our priorities?
Madam President, members of the commission, that's really at your discretion. We've done that sometimes in the past, sometimes we haven't. If that's something the commission is interested in, we're glad to set up meetings. And we can work through Stacy to set those meetings and have those discussions related to the one-on-ones. We're glad to do that and walk through the information in front of you.
I think that would be great.
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering?
just flagging, I will be in a different state on May 14th, so may not be able to tune in, but if there is a possibility that we could reschedule that, I'd really appreciate it, but obviously we'll accept it if we don't have it in the timeline to bump it back a week.
All right. That all? Okay.
That's it.
Questions? All right, any questions for Justin?
Madam President,
Commissioner Pickering?
just want to say thank you again, Justin. It's like really heartening to see this and already just really eager to dive in.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners. The staff is looking forward to a robust discussion related to the budget and integrated 5-year work plan this year.
Yep,
Thank
thanks very
you.
much, Justin. All right, that's all the business on today's agenda, so we will see you there. Next week is the 5th Wednesday, so no meeting, so we are back in 2 weeks. Thanks all.
We have our homework.